Hi, Greg.
Hi, Hugh. Man, we got a pretty good topic tonight. I'll tell you that. This is it's a good topic, but it's a sad topic because these murders they really demand justice. Something should be done. A lot of people who really like President Trump are going to be shocked by what we're going to talk about tonight, because Trump is responsible in a large part, I guess, pretty darn close to directly responsible for these Rhoden murders in Ohio. And this is in the county where my dad works most of his life, where the Piketon Uranium Enrichment Facility is. This is very familiar to people I know, people I grew up with, not far from my hometown. And one of the people accused of obstructing justice literally lives right down the street from where I used to live, right down the street from where one of the former governors, Ted Strickland, used to live. Really interesting correlations I'm going to put together here. What I want to do is I just want to just share with you all these amazing connections that I found, and then after I do that, I'm just going to turn it over to you to add some more to how Trump and the Russians and the Ukrainians all fit into this picture, and the Russian mafia. But so the Rhodens were killed in April 22nd of 2016. And this was the time that John Kasich was running for president. And John Kasich was the governor of Ohio. And I know.
Yeah, I remember that well.
Yeah. Well, in Gematria, I found out that John Kasich and Mike DeWine, our current governor, go together really well. Now, for those that are the first time, if you just check the Gematria calculators, you look at it at gematrinator.com, okay? And then you just punch in the words and they give you the numbers. It's not like you got to be a genius to figure this out or anything. You just got to put the right words in. Well, John Kasich and Mike DeWine are perfectly matched, really close, 98, 98. Now 44, that's going to be really important here in a second. And then 53, which I suspect that's your birthday, Hugh. So
yeah, it's my birth date and my 4-4. They doubled me.
Yeah. Look at that, and 172 and 55. Okay, then we got the Rhodens, the family that was killed, and we got the 98, 98. They're 98. And this happened in Piketon County, which is 99. But now here this 44 is really interesting. Okay, we run into 44 all the time. In Gematria, kill equals 44. It's in all kinds of movies. Well, in Pike County, you Google Pike County, and Pike County is 444 square miles. I don't think that's an accident.
No, it's not. That's my Pike. Pike is my family.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. I just made my board. Get my board on my feet. Knock that back up there. Sorry about that. Now, Trump is the 44th person to be the president, and he's the 45th president. Okay.
Yeah.
So that again is very, very close. And the amazing thing is that these murders happened 44 days after the last solar eclipse. I've done lots of videos talking about how they sync murders with eclipses all the time. And this one is definitely no different. I mean, for it to be this obvious, 44 days, when we're talking about John Kasich, which is 44. And I only even Googled this and put it together because of what you said and who you said did it, and how you're related to the family that they're blaming or probably setting up for the murders. Because look at this. Now, Pike County, where this took place, is 139, 49, 131. This 131 is really important, okay? But look how much it goes with the Russian mafia. Now, you told me before I looked up any of this that this is related to the Russian mafia. And I said, okay, I'm going to look into this. And when I punch it in, look at this. It's exactly the same as Pike County. Okay, look, 131 and 131, 50 and 50, 193 and 139, which is just a slight reversal. Now that is not a coincidence. 49 and 50 are the same thing. The only one you could throw out there is 85. That's unbelievably amazing.
Yeah, that's how many governors raped me. 5. And I was marked by the Russian mafia all my life.
You see, that's amazing. This is not a coincidence how this goes.
No, it's not a coincidence, and there's a con behind the con you're talking about, and we're going to do that in the next video.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Now check this out. The 131 is almost like 113. Now, okay, they were murdered on 4/22/16, which is the 113th day of the year. These numbers slightly different. And they made a point in the articles that I read of pointing out how many kilometers, like anybody in America uses kilometers instead of miles. And they said,
remember, Greg, when we first met, you were worried about 11, what was it, 9/11/9 in September 11th
yeah.
in the bridge, and I told you, no, don't worry about that. Worry about 11/3.
Oh, well, this is going to back up exactly what you just said. Check this out.
Yeah, remember?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I totally remember. Yeah, because 113, not only is it fiction and all that, but it's
And I don't do. It's important everybody knows I don't know anything at all about gematria.
right. Yeah.
I've lived all this stuff. I see it through different things.
Yeah, the gematria just backs up what you're already saying. And that's exactly what happened here. You said Russian mafia, so I went and searched it. And that's exactly what came up. I mean, it came up exactly like what you were just saying. So the Rhoden family was murdered on the 113th day of the year. And then they said it was 113 kilometers south of Columbus, which of course is where Kasich would be, in the capital of Ohio.
Is that where the murders were?
No. The murders were 113 kilometers south of Columbus.
South of Columbus, okay.
Mm-hmm. Then officially he withdrew 13 days after. There's the 13 again, the 1-3.
Right.
Okay, and 44 days is the same thing as a month and 13 days. So we had 44 days after the last total solar eclipse, and this was also the same as 1 month and 13 days. You could say 44 days, or you could say a month and 13. So there's a 113 again. Now, so he officially withdrew 13 days later on 5/4. Now, if you add up the date as 5 plus 4 plus 20 plus 16, okay, that equals 45. And which president are we working on? The 45th president. So do we think that Kasich got the message from the Russian mafia and from Trump sending him a message to get the heck out of the race? Looks to me like he did. And so they killed these 8 people. And, here we are. We got everybody thinking that.
Well, 45 is also a gun. A 45 is a gun, and 45 and a 357 aren't far apart. And that's what I published, 45 records.
Yeah.
Go on. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but those things are all important.
Oh, yeah, they are. I agree, totally.
And I can hardly wait to do the next video after this one, because that's really it's gonna blow wide open what you're seeing here.
Wow. I mean, I am looking forward to that. I am really excited about that, Hugh. We're gonna go through.
I just hope I can explain it well enough, and we're not going to leave the video until I have explained it well enough so that you understand it, and hopefully then the audience can understand it, because it's very complicated.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna get me a fresh notepad and take notes, and I'm gonna try to make sure I understand it and ask plenty of questions. So
yeah, once you understand it, everything you do in the future, that's gonna affect everything you do in the future. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's all right. But I talked about in the past how Jalea Davis' story, that the local newspaper likes to do stories about her on Pi Days, and anybody can verify that just by looking at the stories. I'm not just pulling it out of my butt. Well, on this article, okay, it said that new information was given from the defense on 3/14. 3.14 is pi. So they're doing that again with another murder. And then another story said that something came out on 7/22, and I'm like, oh my gosh, 22 divided by 7, there's pi again. And then the 42s were in here again because this is 4/22 when this murder was. And Jalea Davis was murdered on the 42nd day of the year. And Frank Ancona, that we talked about a few videos back there about how he was the KKK guy. He was killed on the day leaving 42 days left in the year. I made a reverse the days of the year, days left in the year, but it's the same difference. Okay, and here we got 42, 42, and then April 4/22. And it's like all the pieces, they just keep repeating these patterns over and over again. It's really obvious. Now, the family that they blamed for this were Wagner, and I know you're going to have a lot to say about the Wagners. And this happened in Pike County, which was actually named for Zebulon Pike, but Zebulon Pike was related to Albert Pike. And I don't think that's a coincidence by any stretch. I had a note on that.
No, that's my great uncle, Albert Pike. And he was murdered. And
guess when? Guess when? I just said 42. Albert Pike was murdered on 4/2.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. That's my 4 again. And you found my 11/3, and I told you that's the date you need to look out for, not 11/9, 11/3.
Mm-hmm. And then there's about two or three more pieces. I want to put it on there. And then
I think it's interesting that my wives were murdered, 3 of them. I moved here by Pike County. I live next door to 2 Pike doctors here that graduated from the university and VA hospital that my family built. And then you got 3 4s in Pike right behind you on the thing. And none of this is coincidence. My whole life has been by design.
Everybody knows that when the media wants to talk about an assassin, they put their middle name in there, right? Usually a fake assassin, sometimes a real one, but like, Oswald, Lee Harvey Oswald, they want to put that, that middle name in there. And the reason they do that is because it fits the Demetrius so well. Well, here, the first person they blamed and accused for this murder was George Billy Wagner. So they had to put the Billy in there. And because when you calculate it, it equals 40. I mean, he's 47 years old, but his name equals 185, which is exactly the same as Donald John Trump. So who did actually order this? Oh, Donald John Trump did it through his mafia connection.
Well, I wouldn't blame Trump personally, because Trump's covering for Obama and Bush, and Clinton was involved in this too. No telling who did the murder, but it was definitely done to just force Kasich out of the race. I would almost want to blame Senator Graham more than any of them, and that's a different related story you haven't even touched on here. But go on, Greg.
Yeah, that's the gist of the numbers there. Now I want to see how it connects more to this. Just what you were saying. Just go ahead and take it from that spot and tell me how you think it would relate and how it relates to other murders and any direction you want to take it from there.
Well, I know the Rhoden murders were a drug. When it first come out, it was all about drugs, and it was all across the nation in the papers that it was drug related. Now they're saying it was the whole Wagner family killed the whole Rhoden family over a kid. Isn't that what the take is now?
Yeah.
And then you have Mike DeWine, and Mike DeWine was he the district attorney or the prosecutor?
Let's see, he was a state senator, and then he was, he was a federal senator for Ohio.
He was federal?
Yeah.
When the Rhoden family was killed, was he a prosecutor or no?
He was the attorney general then.
Okay, the attorney general. Yeah, he's above all the prosecutors in Ohio then. And I view it as Mike DeWine was paid off to turn a blind eye, reported as drugs, and then Kasich backed out of the presidential election. And I believe that the Republican senators and the Democrat senators worked together to force him out, because he's making a lot of sense. He was pulling a lot of the votes away from Trump, and definitely pulling a lot away from the Democrats. And they all forced him out with that murder. And they advertised the murder as drug related. And Mike DeWine was the district attorney then. All the cases got to go through the district attorney or the state attorney. And Mike DeWine was in charge over all the prosecutors and attorney. And when you look at the long run, now they've changed the story. It's no longer a drug related murder, as they told the whole nation during the election. But it's over one little boy or girl, and I don't buy that. And then Mike DeWine, he won over John Kasich to be your governor, or did John Kasich even run again? I don't know.
No, I think he was term limited out.
But now he went from being district attorney to your governor, and that speaks volumes to me. Out of the whole Rhoden family murder, it seems to me he was paid off. Mike DeWine, and now he's your governor. And knowing politics the way I do, I'm related to presidents, and I know how they murder around me. They dismembered, murdered, and raped 4 of my wives, hiding the truth of the Kennedy family's murders. I would say that Mike DeWine is the one who profited from that family's death. And the whole story changed. That just blows my mind that it went from a drug story to a child custody story. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Because they had former drug prosecutions, and they said they found drugs, and all over the nation they were talking about drugs, and that was because of Robert Tosh Plumley and Kiki Cameron and my fiance Kiki being murdered, and I'm the guy that actually stopped the drugs that the Senate and the CIA were running in Southeast Michigan a long time ago, and part of the election touched on drugs, and then you had this drug killing, and it was right in Kasich's hometown. And I know that someone contacted him. He dropped out the next day.
Yeah.
And I believe that was the Senate mafia.
Okay.
And they do have one. And you have a Russian mafia that's even stronger than the Italian mafia in this family, in this country. That family.
You had mentioned the Russian mafia, which is why I looked up Russian mafia there. So tell me how you.
Well, I have no choice but to do that because in my lifetime, I've been marked by the Russian mafia my entire life. Sylvester Stallone, my fiance was with Sylvester Stallone's wife when she was dismembered and raped. And that was before you were born, Greg. And Sylvester Stallone is from Ukraine. My lead player was Dr. Wood. You had Natalie Wood die as my niece Natalie was born. Natalie Wood is from Ukraine. I was with Jimmy Hoffa, and my truck was dynamited on the day Jimmy Hoffa disappeared. And they're changing those stories now. I pointed out to you, now they're digging up in a new place related to a New Jersey governor of New Jersey, Christie family are my cousins. And I already know that my mother-in-law was with Jimmy Hoffa on the day he disappeared. I was with him, and the FBI arrested me or detained me in my driveway. They surrounded my work truck after my other truck had been dynamited that morning, the CO2 tanks, and they tried to arrest me or detain me for Jimmy Hoffa's murder. And then they went from me to O'Brien, and the O'Brien family were my families when I was born. And that consists of Dr. O'Brien, Chucky O'Brien, and then another O'Brien. And they tried to tell you that Chucky O'Brien is his kid murdered him after they attempted to tell me I murdered him. The thing that's real interesting in my case is they look at all the books and the movies, and not in any press release has it ever been said that I bought a car from Whitey and the FBI detained me in my driveway in front of 5 kids.
Yeah, that's Whitey Bulger.
And now they've just released a new movie, De Niro, and De Niro has spent his lifetime marking me in movies through his company. And Scorsese and Warner Brothers, and they make all these movies and write all these books, but no one ever mentions the fact that at that time I owned Shelby Service Center, and I rented that from the Carousel, and the owner of the Carousel trademark in the clubs was Jack Ruby, and all this is interrelated. And when Hoffa disappeared, the Warren Report had been reopened. And I'm sitting there with Tony Tocco, and I had just bought Miller a house, and the FBI told you they found a spot of blood in Miller's house. He wrote a book, they made a movie, and all of these movies and books are lies. And the current one that they're telling you, it'll be another lie.
Yeah, how can you not? All these people writing these books. How in the world if it's not some seriously concerted effort to hide the truth?
Well,
how would you not want to interview a person who had his truck dynamited on the day Hoffa died?
The thing I find interesting is all of this is in my life, and then nobody interviews me. I'm kidnapped at 4 by 5 governors, and the same 5 people framed Oswald. That's a no-brainer. They murdered Kennedy, and then they framed Oswald. I own the business, and I rent it from the Carousel. Tony Tocco and Miller worked for me. Okay,
Well,
Al
tell
Brooks,
people what the carousel is. They're probably not going to know what you're talking about.
that's Jack Ruby's club. Now then, and Jack Ruby shot Oswald. And Jack Ruby was Kennedy family's friend. That's where the Kennedy families went, you know, to relax and be social.
Yeah, so he thought he was helping out by shooting Oswald.
Right, but the thing is, Greg, why am I always in the middle of all of this, but all media denies I exist? And the Kasich, the murder there, the Rhoden family, that's related to me too, in ways I'm not even going to go into because it's complicated.
Well,
When you
one way
really,
that makes sense is the Wagner family. They're blaming the Wagners, and
well,
that's
Wagner is Elvis Presley, and Elvis Presley, my family was writing the songs he sang the day I was born,
Mhm.
and that was Bill LeVice,
And if anybody doesn't believe this stuff, you have a picture of a guitar that Elvis used to own that he gave you.
well, that was actually Chuck Berry's guitar, and I bought it from Elvis when he sold it in the pawn shop in just before you get into Tennessee. There's a pawn shop there. I can't remember the name of the city, but Elvis would pawn cars there and guitars, and I knew the pawn shop owner.
I always
And then I left that pawn shop, and I actually went to Chet Atkins' store. Chet Atkins had a little music store outside of Knoxville, the Army base. What do you call that? Fort Knox. And my brother-in-law was running Fort Knox, and back then, the Paul family had been my business manager, and the Paul family sold me out to the mafia. And my lead guitar player was Tony de Blasio, and he was born in Brooklyn, New York. And he went to Vietnam, come back, and then he and I played music together for 38 years.
And that's why we have a de Blasio in New York now.
And yeah, on the day he died, de Blasio, another Russian, he changed his name to de Blasio, and he took over behind Giuliani. And then Giuliani is Julian Assange and the Miller family all over again. And I can prove that, and it's complicated, but essentially the house I bought for Miller, and when Tony Tocco and the Barclay family worked with me, and I was renting a business from the Carousel, Miller lived on Julian Street. And then you had Julian Lennon, and all of these in my life, it all fits together because I'm a music publisher, and I publish the Beatles. I publish anybody you can think of, Kenny Rogers, you know.
I'm sure that relates to Julian Assange and Giuliani and.
Yeah, all the Julian name is a whole different fad in music and history.
Okay.
And you have Julian Assange from, and he's supposed to be your truther, and in reality, Julian Assange is a rapist from another country who sought asylum, and in America made him their truther, a guy who raped little girls. That's insane to me.
What a
and
con. Everything's a con. It's like Kanye West.
Well, he was put there, and we'll go into this in detail in another video.
Yeah.
But I've known all my life that Julian Assange is complete disinformation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Alex Jones was disinformation. Jesse Ventura, disinformation. And I'm going to go into a video and I'll explain to you as best as I can who's behind the disinformation. But that's not a good play. This video is not good for that because I have to set it all up and say it in some type of order, and it's very complicated. And these numbers you got on your board, like 9, 8, well, I was being raped. I was being sodomized and orally raped, and that's by 5 people. And you got a 5-5 with Kasich, you got a 5-5 with DeWine, and these people know I was raped as a child, but they never say it in the media. Mm-hmm. And then the 53 is my birth date, and there's the 4-4, and because they never, Al Brooks Patterson never reported my kidnap or my rape, and he hid my truth for 60 years and died with it.
Right.
And that was all by design because he's getting federal money to solve crimes he never solved. And the first child killing was my twin in that basement, and he was dumped in a field in Pennsylvania by one of the people and families that kidnapped me.
it's an insane life. You just heard gunshots outside your house. Is there anything you want to say about that?
I don't know nothing about it. I just carry my guns here.
Yeah.
I don't pay attention to other people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. I've had so many murders, and every day of my life I see another murder up close and personal. And this has been going on for 66 years of my life, and it's all politically motivated, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they maintain power, is by killing Americans. If you kill the right American, then you get their money and their power. And that's what's going on in this country.
I'm glad you reminded me of that, because okay, when they're doing this, okay, this information would say to blame automatically. Look at all these numbers and just automatically tie it to the Freemasons. And what I'm finding out is if this is related to the Russian mafia or any of the mafias whatsoever, whether Russian or not, if it's related to mafia, then what this is this is foreign mafia, or even if it's domestic or whatever, but they're all related somehow, whether it's Italian mafia, Russian, whatever. They are blaming the people of this. I think they're sending a message to the Freemasons. It's not the Freemasons. They're sending a message to the founding of this country. And that's why they use names like Wagner.
Well, this is all money related, Greg. It's money and power related. All the money flows down from the very top. It's things like you and I are on Facebook. That's how we met. My father-in-law is Joe Jacobs. He gave Bill Gates the software to make his first computer. Here where I live, they just murdered one of the Gates family members. And Bradley did it. And Bradley, in my life, Alan and Bradley was a guard at Ford Motor Company, and he took my brother's home and his kid from him behind his back when he was in Vietnam, Bradley. And then the detective in charge of my life, who was supposed to be protecting me, was going to bed with my wife, Alan. And then I was working for Chrysler, Ford's, and the computer companies, and designing the robots that built the cars with Alan Bradley controllers. So and this is how, and all of this was done by money from above. Mm-hmm. And I mean above the automakers. And this was all done as my father-in-law gave Bill Gates the software to make his first computer. So then that means like people like that, the people that made Macintosh, they got their information by spying on me, and that's the Cook family and the Perry family and the creator of Macintosh. And I knew those people as a child, as a kid, when my second wife, who's still alive. Those were her friends, and they spied on me. And then you got the Apple. You had Microsoft first, and they were made in America. Then they got all the processors got farmed out to China. And Trump just put sanctions on Huawei. Well, I'm Hugh, and they have a phone called Honor. Well, Honor was my lead guitar player's mother. That was her name. And she's half black, half white. And that's part of the Jalea Davis. And then Jefferson Davis. And I rented a house from the Ball family, and they gave you Private Malone song, I believe, while I rented from Tammy and her husband, Ball.
Yeah,
and these are all related.
A gunshot in the back of the head, just like
these. Yeah, these are all related crimes. And Gates was just killed here yesterday or today. I just heard it on the news today, and it was by Bradley. Now this is the next generation of the Bradley family, and my brother's kid was raised by Bradley. As I get a son with my name, who is the Detective Akers' son. You understand what I'm saying? And all this money to do this they were manipulating I and my brother's life. And back when you were talking earlier, 7-Eleven, Southland Corporation wanted me to be president, and I turned them down back when Phil Collins first come over. My girlfriend was Sharon Collins, and they killed her with cancer, like they killed Senator Kennedy and McCain. And she actually married Anderson, the same Anderson family that kidnapped me when I was 4. And you see how all this fits. And these families know that where the money's coming from, and they fit themselves into the money that's flowing from the top.
So they're
And
sending a
then
clear message when they kill a Wagner or Hugh the Wagner.
right, and the Wagner family is that's Elvis Presley's family. That's the grandmother of the family. And I work for Wagner. When I worked for Wagner, Charles Caldwell died, and you had Charlie Sheen, and those are related murders. Caldwell, who worked for Wagner with me, he attempted to murder me, and then somebody murdered him. And I'm not afraid to say that. And then M. Jagger, who runs Caldwell Banks in Arizona, sent me a Christmas card, and Charles was murdered. And then you got Charlie Sheen. And then I was in charge of grants at ASCAP, and I could get, like, if you wanted to learn music in a college, I could give you a $100,000 grant to go to college. And then you got Hugh Grant. And this is how my life works. And people think I'm crazy, and I'm not. Hollywood marks me, and the people running Hollywood is the Ukraine. Ed Asner was Russian. Now you have Bernie Sanders running. He's an open socialist. He agrees with Putin and Russia. And I've known this all my life. You got de Blasi. He takes the place of my Italian bass player in New York. After Giuliani, I bought Mary Miller and her uncle a house on Marion Street, and that's that other murder I posted the other day. That's Marion White. I lived across the street from Betty White and her husband, and they ran a racetrack. And then you had Betty White in Hollywood. My whole life is like that. Daily, my entire life is marked through Hollywood. And the Russian mafia was running Hollywood. There's no other answer for that. And then you have, I went to school with Mueller. I went to school with Capone, who became the Rutledge family. Now Rutledge is running Disney, and Disney marked me as Baby Huey. And this is how the power flows. It comes from a top that nobody even knows exists, and it flows down.
But just to make sure, because a lot of people are going to mistake that as you're claiming that there's an Illuminati, but you come out a lot as...
No, I am the Illuminati, Greg. I am the Illuminati. I need to make that clear. Albert Pike was my great uncle, so I'm head of the Masons. I'm ASCAP. I'm Squier Cap. I'm the cap. I'm the capstone, and I'm the bottom line. So I'm the bottom of the pyramid, and I'm on all your money. I'm the all-seeing eye at birth, and I don't want to kill anybody. If I want,
that's a really, really important distinction that I'm really trying to correct out there on the internet, because
good luck. There's been so much disinformation about that. You could spend a lifetime and it won't happen. The Illuminati made everybody free. So did the Masons. We wrote your Declaration of Independence and won the war against King George, and then you say the very people that gave you freedom I want to kill everybody, and that's the biggest lie there ever was.
And these people like you are the ones that are being targeted by the foreign entities.
My family went around the country, and we built hospitals all over the country, donated the land for hospitals and universities. We owned universities at birth. We tried to educate people. And why would we make hospitals if we want to kill everyone?
Yeah, the bones that you discovered there started out as
Skull and Bones was a football team of doctors.
Yeah.
And that's what it really was.
Yeah.
And you can go up to Portland and see the football players, and all their jerseys have Skull and Bones.
Yeah.
And the first doctor to graduate, woman doctor, was Mrs. Ford. And then Albert Pike's, his ancestors also graduated from the same Portland University. They're Masons. He was a 33-degree Mason. They cut his head off. It doesn't mean they could stop the power that he had. The people that cut his head off are the people you need to worry about. Albert Pike didn't murder anybody's. He didn't cut nobody's head off. He wrote you a book, and then they cut his head off. And then we built hospitals all over the country so you can go and have a place to get better in. And then you have people like Alex Jones saying, we want to kill everybody. No, we don't. That's complete disinformation.
Yeah, you helped design the x-ray machines, I think you told me, right?
I built x-ray machines all my life for hospitals. And General Electric puts their name tag on the x-ray machines that I built with a German man.
Yeah, that really doesn't sound like the work of what people are saying.
No, it's all baloney what they're saying. It's just the opposite. The people saying that are the people taking in the money from things like 9/11, from Oklahoma bombing, and they caused the problems. And then they caused the bomb, they caused the war, and then they turn around and say, my family did it. I was used as ground zero by George Bush. I didn't cause 9/11. I had nothing to do with it. They were hiding the theft of my life. I'm Huey Squier. You got Huey Lewis in the news, and that's not his name. His real name is Craig. You got Billy Squier. That's not his real name. So you got complete disinformation from France and Germany and your president. And I was used as ground zero. He said my name on 9/11, and then he blamed one of the little kids I was publishing for paying the Muslims. And it's the biggest, it's not a true story. And then they sold that same little kid as they murdered Sarah Heath's family on my farm. They murdered Terry Heath Olson. That's Sarah Heath Palin's family. They hung her in her dog's leash and dismembered her and then killed her. And the dog leash, the hanging in a dog leash didn't kill her. They killed her 35 days later. And this was while the election was going on. And we lived on the Manning Ranch, the biggest Civil War ranch in Tennessee, where the South got turned back by the North, and she was married to the only living Civil War soldier on earth. And no, not even an obituary for a girl that created the Head Start program. Not even an obituary, Greg. And this is the con. And it's because I'm the Truth of Kennedy in the Oakland County in Hoffa, and they've hidden me for 66 years now. 66 years. And the people running your country are the very people hiding it. And they tell you because you can't handle it, that's baloney. It's because the people running to be your president keep passing the power back and forth, hiding me and murdering Americans. And then they turn around and tell you it's the Illuminati doing it. No, it isn't. I'm the Illuminati. I'm the Jackson on your 20.
Yeah, it only benefits these powers when we blame the wrong people. And if we don't clear that up, we're just going to keep falling for the same garbage.
Yeah, well, it needs to be known the people who founded this country aren't trying to kill everyone. They made everybody free. And the people telling you that we are trying to kill everyone are the people causing the problem. And in my next video, I'm going to show you exactly where the problem's coming from. And it isn't even the people running to be president. I'll show you the exact cause of the problem. The Rhoden family, to me, that's just terrible. And if it didn't have to do with drugs, then that was the biggest lie there ever was, right in the middle of a big election. You know, and I can't even remember who was running. Was that still McCain in that election, and Obama and Bush and
2016, 4/22/16.
Yeah, okay. So Trump, that's the election Trump and Jeb Bush were in, and well, who's Trump's best friend is Graham, and Graham, you know, I've said this 1,000 times in all my videos. A church leader like Billy Graham has no business in the White House telling Americans what they should be doing. I live in a free country. I can believe that the worm out in your driveway is my God if I want. And no leader, the Pope or Billy Graham or Kanye West, no, I can't. None of them have business in the White House or the Senate telling Americans what they should do. And the moment you have that, you're being controlled by a mafia. And not even a mafia, you're being controlled by the most evil people on earth. And I'm saying that about our churches. Look at how our church leaders, all of them rape children, and it's all of them. It's every church in this country rape children as they tell you, oh, donate to me. It's the biggest con this country's ever been through. And they're causing religious wars, and they make you hate the Muslims as they rape your children and take your wallet. And then they give Israel all this money. And Israel starts the wars. And this is a con. In my family, I'm related to King James through Admiral Byrd. Schofield is my cousin. He writes the Living Bible, King James, and they're not the Illuminati.
No.
We rebelled against them. Yeah, and we said, you're our equal. Mm-hmm. I'm the Illuminati family. I'm Jackson on your 20, Hamilton on your 10, Grant on your 50. Those are my family members.
And just to explain to those people that just don't get this, he's not meeting in secret rooms with a bunch of other Illuminati members and controlling your life. Okay,
No, the people I'm telling you about who are accusing me caused 9/11 by stealing my birth name.
They're the ones that are doing
And even that communist Pope took my middle name. Francis is my middle name. As Huey Lewis took my first from France, and Billy Squier from Germany took my last name, Francis, from a communist from the South, South America or wherever he's from, I don't even know. He took my middle name. Francis is not his name, and he knows. And they did this before 9/11. And then I went to school with the Pope before him, the Benedict. The Benedict family is my friend where I grew up. I went to church with them as I went to school to learn how to be a priest. This is the biggest con there ever was.
I love how they changed names, like Netanyahu, who was a Polish guy. That's not his family name.
Who's that?
Netanyahu. His name was originally Polish. Benjamin Netanyahu.
You're talking about Bibi Netanyahu?
Yeah.
Huey?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, his name was pronounced, the Jews in New York, they'd come out and protest him. It's Bibi Net and Huey. And then when I started saying, well, I own Bibi Street and I'm Huey, I'm a fisher of men, and he's just another con like Sharon Collins, Sharon. And I played with Jim Gold in the gallery and his brother, the Gold family, Gold of my ear. And you got Whoopi Goldberg. This is a con. This is a con that started back after World War II. And the con started way before then. And that's what I'm going to tell everybody about. And I'm going to show where the power is coming from. And it's not the Illuminati. The people that wrote your declaration and built the hospitals and are against King George and the London throne. We're not here killing everybody. We're trying to get you to get some sense. Yeah, right. That's my ancestor through the Portwood family. In the original colonies in the 1600s. I can trace myself all the way back to 2000 BC because I'm the royal family and I know who I am. And I am the top of the Illuminati. That's why I was AS Cap and my Iron Cross is on everybody's movies until 9/11. Now they've changed all the laws and I no longer exist. That's interesting. On 9/11, they changed all the laws for the worse against you.
All this has to be covered up. Look at the claims that he's making, and not a single media interest comes out and interviews him, puts them on.
And there's no lie in what I'm saying.
He just finds out, tries to uncover if he's telling the truth. Nothing. Think about these amazing claims. Anybody with any sense whatsoever, if this wasn't being covered up, would be all over this story. There would be media everywhere running towards this, trying to figure out if this is true, trying to put the pieces together, trying to understand it, and then running with it like crazy.
No, they don't care about truth, Greg. No, truth doesn't matter in the media.
Exactly.
The media is run by that power from above. And it's not the American media anymore. None of it is, not even the newspapers. All the newspapers are owned by the same person. This whole country has blinders on them, and they've had blinders on them since shortly after Lincoln was murdered.
Yeah, the same power, like you just said, this upper interest is controlling everybody. That's outside of our country, outside of our country interests, or at least outside of the historic people who created this country's interests. They run everything, like you said, all the way down to the newspaper. And so when people don't believe me when I tell them that the Jalea Davis paper murders are reported in the local newspaper by a code using pi, when they reported on 3/14, which is pi, and the 227th day of the year, which is pi, then we just repeated the same pattern on the Rhoden murders and everything. This is exactly what I'm talking about. They are the same people run the same interests from local all the way up to this big stuff. It's all this foreign powers from the Queen and the fake Jews and Hollywood and all these people.
Every president writes his own history, and I laugh at the Vietnam War. More people died in Vietnam and got hurt in Vietnam, and it lasted 3 times longer than the Korean War, but they no longer call it a war in your history. in your history books in school, it's a police action. If it was a police action, how did they initiate the draft?
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, we were looking up those numbers the other day, and you blew my mind once again, what you do on a daily basis. But look at this. You were saying the official U.S. Census numbers for dead in the Civil War, 3 million people total.
Yeah, more people died in the Civil War than all the other wars put together.
But
And
all you ever hear about is the
when people say they want another Civil War, they're insane. Because you'll go out in your neighborhood and every other person will be dead in a Civil War. You don't want a Civil War. That's the whole reason we have voting booths. You vote out the bad. Like this guy DeWine, who was prosecutor, and they lied about this case and told the entire public during the presidential election that it was a drug deal. And then he runs to be governor, and now it wasn't a drug deal at all. And they had all these stories all over the country about how it was illegal drugs. Kasich drops out and goes back to take care of this murdered family and look after his state. And then the prosecutor in the state is now your governor after lying to you about what the murder was about during a presidential election.
So
he's a crook.
That's right.
There's no other answer. He's a crook. And he was put there by the senators who favored Trump because Kasich was a Republican, and Trump, he was dividing Trump's vote. So they got rid of him. And the people that got rid of him will be people like Mr. Graham. There's Billy Graham in your White House again. Graham wouldn't be senator if Billy Graham hadn't been in your White House and Senate teaching you. And these people have a stranglehold on you, and they're lying to you daily. Mm-hmm. They're lying to you daily as they rape your children and take your money and give your tax dollars. Okay, here, Greg, Ukraine. Trump withheld how many billions of dollars from Ukraine?
Was it 3 billion or something like that?
Isn't that a good thing?
I would think so. That's what
I didn't have to give Ukraine $3 billion of my tax dollars. Why am I giving Ukraine $3 billion of my tax dollars?
Yeah, exactly.
Explain that to me. And that's just one little payment.
You know,
and why is Joe Biden's son getting $50,000 a month from Ukraine? This is so criminal. It's pathetic, and it's my tax dollars, my wallet, and your wallet they're using. And then
people are going to answer the same way.
And then they make the movies in Hollywood, Greg. They're making the movies in Hollywood as we give them billions of dollars. And why are we even giving it to them? Oh, to buy them away from Putin? That's a lie. That's not why. Okay. And they have all these little circles, and we'll go into that in the next video, next Monday. I'll break that wide open. Yeah. It's insane what's really going on.
Yeah, Stallone was Ukrainian, not Italian.
You don't want another civil war, Greg. You want to vote these people out. Look at the video I posted about the radiation in this country, and nobody's doing it. If any one of your presidents cared about you, they would be telling you, we need to concentrate our efforts on getting the nuclear subs and battleships with live reactors at the bottom of the ocean out of the oceans. Look what Fukushima. Look at the radiation you got from Fukushima and Chernobyl. Well, in every ocean, you have 3 or 4 sunken nuclear ships, and nobody's doing anything to recover them. And they don't even mention it to you. Can you imagine when those ships blow off underneath, when the seawater goes through the steel structure and the nuclear reactors are live in your oceans? And that's not far off. The oceans are salt water. The ships are made out of steel. It rusts steel. So you got a live reactor in every ocean on Earth. You're not going to have any oceans left. And nobody's doing a thing. And if anybody, including Donald Trump or Obama, cared about you, that would be their main concern.
And if anybody wants to verify that information, here it is. All they have to do is look at the NETC website. That's N as in Nancy, E as in elephant, T as in Tom, C as in cat. Nuclear Emergency Tracking Center. And you can see all the Geiger counties across the country, and you can see what they're reading. And the numbers are astronomical. Now, I didn't know until you told me what a good rate was. And like a good rate is like under 30 or 50 counts per minute. And we have counts all over the country right now. 3, 4, 5, 700, some of them.
You're coming up on 1,000 counts per minute.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. And they're
Yeah,
telling you it's safe for you. It's in your air, your food, and your water. And they're not doing anything to stop the flow of radiation into your environment. If
this,
any one of your presidents or governors cared about you, that would be their main concern. And they're telling you, oh, carbon is causing global warming. That's the biggest lie there ever was. It's all the meltdowns at the core causing the global warming. And then people will tell me, oh, the meltdowns don't go to the core. Well, yes, they do. That's why scientists put them on fault lines, is to get the meltdown at the core, because it's equal distance away from everybody and it's the safest place it can be away from you. That's why they built the reactors on the
get
core.
several
Alex Jones said they built it on there to kill you. No, they built it on the fault lines so that the meltdown goes to the core. Well, what is a meltdown? It's 1 billion degrees. It's as hot as the sun for 1 billion years. Well, it's making your core warmer. Oh, it's causing global warming, not my cow farting. It's a no-brainer. And then at the same time, they're taking your tax money, telling you it's the carbon in the air doing it. They're ignoring the real problem, which is the radiation we're all eating and breathing. It's in our entire food chain. It's in our water. It's in our air. It's on the grass when you cut your grass, and it accumulates for 1 billion years. And they're not cutting off the supply. They're telling you it's green power. Yay, green power.
And look how high the count is there in Colorado Springs. We were looking at where a whole lot of the beef comes from.
Yeah, it was 825. I would expect that if a nuclear reactor was shut down because it had a breach or something. That's ridiculous. And you don't want radiation in your food, air, and water.
Millions and millions of us are getting cancer from this, and then the government.
That's exactly right. And they destroyed the tobacco industry, telling you it was the tobacco, and it wasn't. It was the radiation. When you light a fire, you cause radiation. If you smoke, the radiation causes the cancers from the flame.
Radicals and all that, right?
And you know, you have a father who worked at a nuclear reactor. He's got a hole right in his heart from carrying radioactive material.
Yeah, and half of the plant there did. They're right there.
Right, and that's what it does. It tears through human tissue. It causes holes in human tissue, in your brain, your liver, your skin. That's why you get cancer.
They all had to go down and get tested, because when the hole got so big in their heart, then however big it is, then
the entire nuclear plant.
Yeah, it's an enrichment facility.
Okay, and then you know, they used to wear badges so they wouldn't get exposed to the kind of levels we're all getting exposed to right now. And the people wearing the badges have holes in their heart from radiation. Is that what you're telling me?
That's exactly.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
A whole lot of people on the planet have.
But they all love us, Greg, as they tell us radiation is green power. It's good for you. It's green. And this is the con. And it's carbon's what's bad for you. And they take in all the money, build themselves shelters as you're above ground, and you're dying from the food and the water.
Yeah.
And it's a slow kill. Radiation takes 20 years to kill you from cancer. But at the levels they have now, no, it's not going to take that long. It's terrible what they're doing.
Yeah, we're going to see a huge increase in cancers. Everybody around, and we've already seen it. Everybody sees that.
Cancer rates have quadrupled since I was a kid. You'd hear a cancer once in a while. Now everybody you meet has had cancer, and it's all kinds of cancer, and it's the radiation doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And the global warming is being caused by the nuclear weapons and the meltdowns. And that's a no-brainer. If it's 1 billion degrees as hot as the sun and it's at your core, it's heating the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me it's not. I mean, you can't even get near 1 billion degrees. Go jump in the sun. Tell me how it feels. And they're telling me carbon is causing the problem? I don't think so. I'm not that stupid.
Yeah.
I'm not the brightest cookie on the block, but I'm not that stupid. Okay, my cow farting ain't doing what the meltdown is.
Yeah. There's no way the cow farts have anything to do with it. That's a total fraud.
Well, that's a natural cycle. Mm-hmm. And who do we have the fraud to blame? What's his name? Al Gore. Oh, as Al Akers hid my truth of Jimmy Hoffa and the Oakland County child killers by screwing my wife and naming my kid after him. You got Al Gore. And that's all interconnected, because I'm the Jackson family on your 20. Mm-hmm. And there's no lie in the things I say, Greg. I know what they've done to me since birth. They attacked me at birth so they could be your president. There's no lie in that.
Now, when we looked up the Civil War, we said 3 million, and this is on the U.S. website, 3 million total died in the Civil War, which is not what they told me growing up in school, out of a total population of 30 million. So that's 10% of the population
Well,
died.
they tell you how many soldiers died. They don't tell you how many people died from their injuries and how many civilians died. So they water it down by just telling you how many people in the
Yeah.
army.
So we all have a very, very low number in our
10% of the population died in American. 10% of the American population died in the Civil War, and that's more American.
today.
That's more than died in World War II and World War I put together.
Yeah.
Worldwide.
And if we had that same number in a Civil War today, out of a country of 300 million, let's just say we use the same percentage, that would be 30 million people that would die.
I would venture to say you would have more. You would have more than 90% of the country die just because of the nuclear meltdowns. Who's going to run the nuclear plants? They'll all go into meltdown, and then you're going to have the entire country dead.
Yeah.
You don't want a civil war.
Yeah.
That would be the worst thing that could happen is a civil war.
So the best thing to do is to understand this stuff, get busy, get active, and get the wrong people out and the right people in. And
People need to really understand the truth, and nobody in this country carries any truth. The truthers are lying to you, and we're going to go into that in the video.
Yeah.
The truthers are not who you think they are. That's a whole nother ball game, and nobody knows that truth. And I'm gonna really educate you, Greg.
Okay.
And that's why I had gunshots out in front of my house today, because they know I'm gonna do that. That's why they got a new story about Jimmy Hoffa being dug up somewhere else in the Free Press today. And that's why they put in that other story I showed you about.
The story is all over Fox News because
every time I give a little bit of information, they change all the old murders and the dates, so it looks like I'm crazy, don't they?
And we've seen them do it live. We've seen them change websites in live time while you were talking about it.
Yeah, they changed dates, names, and stories. I was with Jimmy Hoffa the morning he disappeared. My mother was with him that night, and my truck, where I went to pick up my supplies for my truck company, it was dynamited that day. And then the FBI met me in my Troy, Michigan driveway and detained me because I bought a car from Whitey. Show me a single mention of me anywhere. And what I just said is gospel. It's the truth.
Yeah, and you own the house of the guy.
5 Kennedys were working with me as they were murdered, working and sending me handwritten letters as they were murdered. Why? Why would 5 Kennedys be? And then Sirhan is my cousin. I own Baker College. Oswald is Baker's girlfriend. Why? Why am I all these things, but no media mentions me? I'm the biggest cover-up the world has ever known.
If it mattered at all, there would be thousands of people beating a path to your door.
Correct. And nobody helps. Nobody. My own family knows these things, and they turn a blind eye because they're afraid. I'm not afraid. I don't care who you are. You're my equal. And I'm telling truth, and the media that's a lie is not going to scare me into submission. You murdered 5 of my wives. You dismembered and murdered 4 of my wives. I'm sorry I said 5, but I'm thinking about the 5 governors that raped me at 4 and then killed kids chained next to me. 4 of my wives, you dismembered, raped, and murdered them after torturing them for 35 days. And not even one of them got an obituary. That's who your media is, Greg. They're the biggest liars on the face of this earth. CNN, Fox, NBC, ABC, Muir, Anderson Cooper, O'Reilly, Sean Hannity. These people are liars. Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah, not even the local.
All of them. They're lying.
The local media and the local papers.
For them to go on day after day and pretend I don't exist, and then change names and news stories and dates, and even the family was murdered over drugs in a presidential election, and now it's 4 years later, another election's coming up. Oh, and the guy that lied to you, DeWine, is your governor, and now it wasn't about drugs, it was about child custody. Drugs had nothing to do with it, right? That's the story now, right?
Best I can tell.
And that's the lie of your media, all your media. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. All your media is lying to you. You're kept in a blind box. Not one reporter has ever interviewed me about my trademark being used for every attorney in the country studies out of my stolen trademark bottom line to pass the bar exam. They didn't even mention that. Just that could fill libraries. Do you know everybody that's been tried in a court? They were tried illegally just because all the lawyers used the stolen trademark to pass the bar exam.
Yeah, so you
Think about that, Greg.
you can't get a jury of your peers, so to speak.
Right, and neither could anybody else if they all stole my trademark.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
It's disgusting what's really
That's all by design. Every last bit.
Exactly. I was kidnapped by design as they murdered Admiral
Started
Byrd.
talking about it. They took the name Bottom Line off of the bar website.
All the presidents say it. All the presidents and all the senators know me, and they all pretend I don't exist. And I have letters from all of them. Letters right to Hugh Squier, owner of Bottom Line, and I post them. You've seen them, Greg.
Yeah, it's not like you're hiding them. They're right there on your Facebook.
Don't you think even just one little local newspaper would stop by to see a letter from a senator?
Exactly, yeah.
You'd think, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, yeah.
Try to write a senator and get a handwritten letter back. All of them wrote me for 3 sessions of Congress before 9/11. And then 9/11 happened, bam, I don't exist no more. I don't have much more to say other than that, Greg.
I have one more thing I want to mention, and this
right.
this should get the attention of people like Zach and others. This is because you said that you went down on an airplane after being poisoned by a cup of coffee. Now, the poison by the cup of coffee, that happened in 1986.
That was at Metro Airport. Airport.
In 1983, there was a song, Murder by Numbers, that came out where they talk about in the song poisoning people in a cup of coffee.
Well, you got a group called Poison.
Before this happened.
I was a publisher with ASCAP. If you wanted to make it in rock and roll or heavy metal, you had to have a publisher to be on the radio or TV and get your royalties. I'm the boss of rock and roll. I'm that publisher, along with the Bourne Company, the Mills Brothers. My competition were all the big entertainment companies. I owned all the same contracts. I go down on a plane, and because of Bush's cyanide, the only people in the country making cyanide is Bush. And he said Saddam Hussein had cyanide. Well, if Saddam Hussein had cyanide, he bought it from the Bush family in Florida, where Trump lives now. And that's a no-brainer for me because I was poisoned with it. I ended up, a plane crash, 187 people died, and they told you one little girl survived, and they never mentioned me being poisoned with cyanide at Metro Airport.
A cup of coffee, just like the song.
And I had just left IBM, Jim Fugit and Joe Jacobs of IBM, with my secretary, Denzel Washington's sister, and our other 2 brothers are linebackers for the Chicago Bears. Then I get poisoned with cyanide at Metro Airport, end up in Providence Hospital. They bring me back to life, and they tell you in the paper in the morning one little girl survived. That's the biggest baloney story there ever was. And I wrote the FBI, and they never returned my call.
Yeah, because let's think about who's running the FBI.
And then George Bush blamed Saddam Hussein for cyanide being used in his country in restaurants at airports.
Yeah, and killed millions of people.
Yeah, and it wasn't Muslims who did that to me.
Exactly.
And then I started to say they sold that little kid they blamed for I was publishing. They blamed his family for paying the Muslims and my other friend, the Boss family in the Keys, Florida, and the Keys in the Gulf. And then when they murdered Terry Heath, Sarah Palin's family on my farm, the Manning Ranch, a Civil War farm. They sold little Ronnie, who they blamed for paying the Muslims. They sold him a house called on Olson Street, Terry Heath Olson, as they murdered my fiance on my birthday. And this is what the Bush and the Obama administrations are like. They murder Americans and set up the new immigrants to be your president. And this is true. And I don't care. They can kill me again. I've been DOA 3 times, Greg. I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm going to keep saying the
what
truth.
happened in the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, they don't scare me, Greg.
Yeah.
And they don't. That's why they're walking around changing all these stories, trying to make me look like I'm crazy and an idiot in real time. They're giving you a new Hoffa story. and they can't get around me. They can give you a new Hoffa story. It doesn't change the fact that I rented a building from the Carousel and Jack Ruby owns the Carousel. They can't get around me, but they keep doing it. And it's done to make, they change the dates and the names and the time frame, and it makes me look like I'm insane, and I'm not. And there's too much involved. I'm in 5 Kennedy murders. I'm in Hoffa's disappearance. Even if he isn't buried in my backyard, it doesn't change the fact I was with him that morning. My truck was dynamited and the FBI arrested me, and my mother-in-law was his date up to Sly Fox. It doesn't change any of that. It doesn't change the fact that the O'Brien family were my friends. It doesn't change the fact of anything. You understand, Greg? They can change all the stories they want, manipulate the media all they want. My story is going to remain as it has remained for the past 66 years. L. Brooks Patterson hid the truth of a little kid being kidnapped and kids being beat to death next to him by the very same people that framed Oswald. And they can change all the stories they want. It's not going to change that truth. And my truth is just going to keep coming through, and people are going to realize they're giving you bullshit story after bullshit story. They dismembered and raped, and my wife, I had to bury her without her ears, another one without her teeth, another one without her legs. And they put natural causes on all the death certificates. You got that, Greg?
I got it.
Oh, hey, Greg, Jimmy Hoffa is buried in your backyard, according to the FBI. And they just found his bones. They dug him up. And yeah, it's Jimmy Hoffa. You know, this is 60 years after the fact, and they're manipulating you with fake stories still to this day.
You're coming out with the truth, and all of a sudden now they're going to find an answer.
Right, exactly.
All of a sudden appear all over TV.
And you notice they had a brand new story the morning after. I tell you, I rented my whole factory. I rented from the Carousel, and that's Jack Ruby. Then they started coming out with these new Hoffa stories, and then they come out with all this. The other murder I posted, and they discredit it by morning. And you've watched it happen time after time, haven't you?
Yeah.
Look at the clown murder. Look at the clown murder. Greg, look at the clown murder before cable TV existed. And there's my cousin, Marlene in Warren, being shot down in Florida where my house was. And I had just gone to New York. Yep. Stopped in Michigan, read the clown story as I signed a contract for sending the clowns, and they think they can get around me. They can't, and they changed that whole story, didn't they?
Yeah. They
changed it by morning. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they even changed the date of when the murder happened, and they think.
And that's why they love Wikipedia. They love Wikipedia because they can go there and change dates and names and stories in 10 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And boy, they hate
the whole
me.
Purpose of Wikipedia, by the way, folks.
I started to tell you that Mark Zuckerberg and McAfee and everybody that had a computer and became a millionaire or a billionaire, even Jeff Bezos, okay, it's because of my father-in-law, Joe Jacobs, and my neighbor Gates, okay. When I was a little kid growing up in the 60s, all right. Zuckerberg's chief CEO is Peter Thiel. Mm-hmm. I have a Peter. You have a Peter. Zuckerberg has a Peter, and his name is Thiel. And my torture in Governor Osborne's basement is they ripped all the tendons out of my thighs. And then Dr. Stone, as torture, cut all the bone out of my feet. And all of this is provable because anybody can just, I already have x-rays of the broken thigh tendons from a doctor in Tennessee, and all kinds of medical information like the bone in my foot is gone. So nothing I'm saying is a lie.
And then they meet at the White House with Trump, and what do you?
Oh, so I have my torture was being on my knees, getting my thighs broken, so I'd give men. You know, I would take Peter from men, and now Zuckerberg, who got his whole business is based on a computer that my family gave him, and we gave the world the first talking computer. Hell, that's a whole nother story. And I was there with my uncle Bucky Fuller. And that's a whole nother. Bucky Fuller owns all the vans. Well, they give me Peter Thiel. And
yeah,
they're making fun of me right out of the White House, and nobody knows these things but me.
But it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I know. And that's how they marked me my entire life and everything. And that's why your gematria fits, because they do it by the number. And there's my 4-4. I'm kidnapped at 4. Admiral Byrd was murdered when I was 4. And my 5, even the 5-5 means something to me, and so does the 17-2 and the 98. But it doesn't mean what your calculator means, so I don't go there.
Yeah.
Well, your calculator, it works, and it works because
Recognize the pattern.
I've been watching all the names and numbers, and I've been there since the day they murdered Admiral Byrd. So I'm watching all these things. My other cousin piloted the Enterprise in Vietnam. Okay, I know what I'm talking about. My brother-in-law was a captain at Fort Knox, and Camp Lejeune was run by Schofield, and before that it was Mothersbaugh, and you got Rush Limbaugh and all these people. Rush Limbaugh killed my brother-in-law by selling him heroin, and he's still your truther, like Julian Assange is your truther for raping little girls. You understand what I'm telling you?
Not in this box like this. In much of the world, and there are other places that are just bad, like maybe Great Britain, but there's a lot of the world that is not in a box like we are in this country, and they know.
No, nobody knows my truth. They deny I exist. And how could I be saying all this stuff? I'm not lying to anybody. I'm not trying to make any money. I'm trying to tell you, your country's been stolen by some really evil people, and they're passing it back and forth.
Yeah.
None of them
helping them.
What's that? Yeah, you're helping them by electing them.
And blaming the people.
And then they give you fake. Then they give you fake truthers to say I'm the problem. The very little 4-year-old they chained to a post, ruined his thighs and cut the bone out of his foot as torture, so he could have a little Peter. They give you Peter Thiel with Donald Trump in the White House after they put Stone in jail. And Stone, you know what kind of lawsuit that is for a guy to pretend he's a doctor and cut the bone out of a 4-year-old's foot?
Wow, yeah.
And I wasn't even 4. When he did that, I was 9. They raped me until I was 35. They would drug me, and I'd wake up after being raped. You understand? As a man.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous what they did to me. And they did this, and all the Kennedy murders coincide, and they did it by the numbers, and it was all a plan since 1953. And my great-great-grandmother was sitting in Ford Theater as Lincoln's guest. That was also a plan, and I'm sitting here telling everybody the truth. And you and one woman are the only people on earth that listen to truth.
Yeah.
And you've looked into me enough to know that Anderson Cooper's a lie, Elon Musk is a lie, CNN is a lie, Fox is a lie, and you know this, Greg, because you've looked into it. And you watch them change the stories as I make posts. And it's a daily thing. This video, there'll be all kinds of stories in the morning, and there will be murders.
Yeah, look for it, folks.
And as this started, I had 2 people shooting guns in my front yard. Remember, Greg? Told you that as you called me. I got a shooting in my front yard. I don't care if they kill me again. They can't take this video away. This video is on 1,000 servers now, and it's there forever. And this message is for the kids 100 years from now that dig up those servers and watch this video. It's a permanent record, and it's a permanent record not because of the Illuminati. That's the law of the country, and it always has been since the first server was made. It has to save every bit that goes through it. It makes 2 copies. It's not me spying on anybody, Greg. It's not the Illuminati spying on you. It's the law. And it was the law for telephones too. Nobody said anything about that. I'm done.
All right.
Have we been talking long enough?
Oh gosh, yeah. I think we covered quite a bit of territory here.
Is there anything else you want to cover in this video?
No, I think we hit it pretty good. I'm really looking forward to talking again Monday. I don't even know what he's going to say, folks. So
we have a bunch of crooks as servants, and all our pastors and priests in the church are a bunch of crooks too. And until we learn this, and we learn that we're being killed with radiation, and Al Gore says it's green power, and the carbon dioxide is killing us. That guy needs to be in a prison cell with Hillary.
Yeah.
And you already know, Greg, I was getting Hillary's computers from Tom Garrett at CBS because Kathy even verified it, remember?
Mm-hmm.
A girl that's not even related to me verified that fact with you, didn't she?
Sure did.
Yeah. All right, Greg.
Well, have a good night, Hugh.
You do the same.